Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Stay a Little Longer by Shay Davis, narrated by Shari Peele. Prologue. He's leaving me, Kira. Serena Howard plopped down on the couch, almost in tears, talking to her best friend, Kira Michaels. She attempted to explain that the man she'd begun to fall in love with, even though she told herself not to, was leaving Philadelphia. This was the exact reason why she wasn't supposed to fall in love with him. She knew from jump that he had goals that did not align with hers. But she couldn't help it. Blake was just the total package. Serena thought, envisioning the package that was Blake as a whole, but definitely about the one nestled between his thighs. Thoughts alone of Blake had Serena's blood running hot as if she just took a shot of her favorite Jack Daniels. His tall 6'3" frame, Hershey chocolate complexion, and chiseled facial bone structure with deep dimples that were visible through his low-cut beard. Thoughts of him had her gone. Earth to Serena! Kira snapped her fingers, attempting to bring her back down to earth. I assume you're talking about Blake. What do you mean he's leaving you? Serena regained her focus and relayed to her best friend how Blake planned to take a job almost 3,000 miles away, and not on how sexy he looked. The latter Kira already knew. Blake is moving to San Francisco. What am I going to do? I'm pretty sure I've fallen in love with him. Kira peered at her best friend with pity in her eyes, knowing how Serena and Blake have been teetering the line of a casual/exclusive relationship for months now. Neither one was seeing anyone else, and to her knowledge haven't been since a few months into their little situationship. However, they've yet to make their relationship official. It now appears as though Blake had a reason for keeping Serena at arm's length. Why on earth is he moving to San Francisco, and when is he leaving? Kira inquired. Serena slouched some more on the sofa, now really needing that shot of Jack Daniels, some honey Jack, preferably, for the emotions she knew were about to hit her again, as they did when Blake told her the news over dinner. Apparently, his company had a few openings that his department head thought he'd be perfect for and told him to apply. He didn't think anything would really come of it, especially not so fast. But he has always been open to the possibility of relocating. In fact, he said he wanted to leave Philly one day. Since meeting him, he's been so focused on achieving his career goals. And as far as when he's leaving for good, I'm not sure. He says he has to fly out there soon to meet the staff he'll be overseeing. He's going to be gone for 2 weeks. Damn, Serena. I am sorry, Sissy Pooh. Kira saw the defeated look on Serena's face and wanted to console her, but she didn't really know how. Kira didn't have the slightest idea about consoling a broken heart. Kira stayed single for a reason, and looking over at her best friend only reaffirmed her no serious attachment rule. Instead of some half-assed attempt at a heartfelt response, Kira suggested they go out and let loose. Let's go out. We can call the girls, have some drinks, and dance our pain away. That garnered a smile out of Serena. She knew Kira would try like hell to make her feel better. I'm not really in the mood, but I know you're not going to let this go, so come on. Let's get dressed, but just us. Kira rolled her eyes and dropped her phone. Serena slid robotically off her sofa and walked toward Kira's closet to see what stretchy fabric she could fit into. If she would go out, she would at least look good doing so, even if she didn't feel good. Serena would miss Blake. Just the thought of him put a smile on her face. She couldn't help but remember the first time he'd put a smile on her face. The moment she laid eyes on him. Chapter 1. September 2018. Kira, I am tired. It's late and I have a contracts class in the morning. The last place Serena wanted to be was out drinking. She was in her second year of law school at the University of Pennsylvania and needed to remain focused. Reading complex contracts with a hangover was not the move she needed to be making tonight. But here she was, in University City on the busy college campus at the busiest Mexican bar in town, with a margarita being shoved in her face, compliments of her best friend. Serena, you're going to be fine. Stop being so uptight. You'll make it to class in the morning. You always do. Shut up and drink, bitch. Kira smiled at Serena and lifted a brow as if to say, cheers, drink up. Serena took a sip and had to admit the strawberry and raspberry frozen margarita mixture was her favorite. She continued to sip through her straw and talk herself into having a good night. As Serena and Kira debated on sharing wings or quesadillas, a deep voice spoke over her shoulder. Why not enjoy both? Serena and Kira turned around, no doubt with a smart remark on the tip of their tongue. However, one glance at the tall, dark, and sexy man staring back at them, words and all thoughts were lost. All they could do was stare. The deliciously sexy man before them tried to hide his amusement at their gawking. Kira was the first to recover and turned on her charm. Well, hello there, Kira said in an attempt to add a little extra sex appeal to her voice. Serena rolled her eyes at Kira's tone. Still, she couldn't help but return her gaze back to the fine man standing behind her. Both she and Kira somehow managed to swivel in their bar stools to get a better look at him. Serena didn't even remember doing so. She was too far gone and consumed by his handsome face. She just knew her view had suddenly gotten better. The tall, dark, and fine stranger replied to Kira. All the while his gaze stayed locked on Serena. Hello to you, too. He wasn't completely rude to Kira. At some point, as if remembering she was the one who initially spoke to him, he managed to pull his gaze from Serena, gave Kira a nod, and smiled a little. Serena's blood heated up when she noticed the dimple peeking from his cheek under his low, freshly maintained beard. She assured herself that the dimple went deeper when his smile broadened, and she couldn't wait to see it. Mr. Good-Looking turned back to Serena with a slightly bigger smile, and Serena thought her heart stopped. All she could think was, what's your name, number, and how can I get to know you better? She knew her thoughts were lame, but she was really intrigued by this man. Serena hadn't felt that overwhelming, tightening feeling in her center in forever. I hope you decide to go with both, he said to them. Serena was stuck. Damn, Serena, stop staring, she thought. Huh? He laughed. Serena was mesmerized by his deep chuckle. She was enamored, and she didn't even know his name. Wait, did he ever say his name? No, I would have definitely remembered that. The wings or the quesadillas. Hope you decided to order both. Then maybe we can share. Finally, regaining her wits, Serena decided to speak up. We don't make a habit of sharing our food with strangers. Well, little mama, my name is Blake, and I'm hoping to share them wings with you and talk. That way we will no longer be strangers. He smiled wide, and just as Serena thought, his dimples were so deep she could get lost in them. You can ask any questions you want over food and drinks, and we can remove stranger from the mix. It was Kira who spoke up. We'd enjoy your company, Blake. I'm Kira, and this here is my girl, Serena. Nice to meet you. Maybe we should put our names on the list for a table and order when we're seated. Kira caught Serena's glare in her peripheral vision. She didn't know if it was due to her inviting him to join them or the fact that she had his attention. What about you, Serena? Would you enjoy my company? He asked silkily, and Serena's mouth went dry. She'd love to enjoy much more than his company. Good God, she thought, I need to get my shit under control. Sure. It's whatever, Blake. Serena shrugged and tried really hard to maintain indifference. She knew she failed, but she had to put in some effort not to seem too affected by this man. Chancing a glance at her best friend, she could tell Kira knew she was lusting after Blake, and Kira looked thoroughly entertained. Kira couldn't remember the last time she'd seen her best friend lust for a man. She knew Serena had been so focused on school that she never thought about going on dates, let alone entertaining a man in her bed. But there was something about this Blake guy that had her BFF losing her normally tight-knit control, and she was here for it. Let me throw her ass this alley-oop or interference or whatever the sports analogies are to help my girl get laid, Kira thought while taking in the attraction the two had to one another. Blake looked down at the beautiful girl who just introduced herself as Serena and was mesmerized. When he walked into the bar, he scanned the entire scene out of habit, wanting to be familiar with his surroundings. Once his eyes darted over to where Serena sat, he was intrigued by her perfect posture and the curve in her back. The way her ass was perched on the bar stool, he immediately thought, damn. It wasn't just her curves that drew his attention. It was also the big, natural curls that hung over her shoulder and down her back. He could tell immediately that it was her natural hair. Blake had a thing for girls with wild, natural hair. And the way the light was hitting her curls let him know that her hair was a rich brown. He wanted so badly just to run his fingers through it. Wanting to examine the beauty further, he strolled over to the bar area, interrupted their conversation, and inserted himself into their night out. Luckily for him, they agreed to let him join them. "All right, then. Let's get a table," Blake said, pulling on his bearded chin. "Have you seen this crowd? It's going to be a little hard to do that," Serena replied. Blake just smiled at her, and Serena blushed, showing off a slight pink tint to her caramel-colored cheeks. It could have easily been missed, but he couldn't stop staring and studying her. Serena's caramel-colored skin was smooth and flawless. Her eyes matched her hair, a rich chocolate color. Blake could make out the brown irises, like the color of the finest whiskey. Damn, he thought a second time. He continued to study her as long as he could without seeming too obvious. He took in her round-shaped face with a cute little dimple in her chin and her thick arched eyebrows and long lashes framing those almond-shaped whiskey-colored eyes. He was captivated. Blake thought Serena was utterly beautiful. "A homie of mine works here. I bet he could look out," Blake stated. Blake stepped away and came back with good news. "After you, ladies." Blake watched the women get off their stools, holding their drinks, and move toward the back of the bar. He couldn't help but let his gaze linger on Serena's ass. It wasn't abnormally big, but combined with the curve of her hips, it was perfect. The way her hips swayed as she walked had him needing to take larger steps to adjust the twitch he felt in his jeans. Blake wanted to touch her, run his hands along her curves. He wanted to know what she'd tasted like. He just met this woman, and his thoughts were spiraling out of control. They arrived at a booth in the back of the restaurant. The girl, who introduced herself to Blake as Kira, slid into the booth, staying on the outside so Serena couldn't fit in next to her. He caught the playful smirk Kira gave Serena and wondered what that was about. Blake could only assume she was trying to play matchmaker. The thought made him laugh to himself. He couldn't remember the last time someone played matchmaker on some young bull-type time. Since graduating with his doctorate in engineering earlier that year in May, and probably many months prior to that, women were the last thing on his mind. His classes and dissertation kicked his ass. Now, feeling like he was ready to mingle again, he would let Kira work her matchmaking manipulations. Not that he really needed help. It's been a while, but he was sure he hadn't lost his game. Serena slid into the booth, and he slid in beside her. Their thighs grazed one another under the table, and the instant heat had him looking down into her eyes. Blake wanted to see if she'd felt the same magnetic currents he felt. Serena wouldn't make eye contact with him, but the way she was fiddling with the menu let him know she'd felt something. I've already told my friend to put in an order for wings and chicken and steak quesadillas. I didn't know which one you prefer, so I ordered both. I also put in an order of loaded nachos. A man after my heart, Kira joked. She then smiled at Serena and winked. Catching her wink, Blake let a low chuckle escape his lips. These two were pure entertainment. It seemed as though Serena was the shy one and Kira was the outspoken free spirit. He couldn't wait to get to know the real Serena. For some reason, he had a feeling once she broke out of her shell, she would be just as free-spirited. I aim to please, Blake responded to Kira, making sure his focus was solely on Serena when he spoke his words. He wanted her to be certain that while her friend was funny and cute with her island vibe, he was interested in her and only her. That's what I'm talking about, Kira exclaimed, clapping her hands together. She knew this entire situation was going to be entertaining. Kira was confident that Blake was ready to take on her BFF. Serena rolled her eyes heavenward at Kira's antics. However, she couldn't deny being enthralled by Blake. Good to know, Serena stammered with a shy smile. She had to get a grip and stop acting as if she was afraid of Blake. Because she wasn't afraid of him, she was simply caught off her guard at how affected she was by him. To maintain some normalcy and balance, Serena asked, So Blake, what brought you out tonight? Blake smiled. I'm still in celebration mode from graduating a few months ago and just wanted to step out. How nice. Can't wait for the day I walk across that stage. Did you go to UPenn? Serena asked. No, I went to Drexel for engineering. Graduated this past May with my doctorate. Blake received an appraising nod out of both Serena and Kira. Oh, okay, Doc, we see you, Kira said. Blake laughed and shook his head. You guys go to UPenn? Blake asked. Yes, I went for undergrad and am now in my last year of law school. Well, my second year, but I'm on an accelerated track. Kira is almost finished with her MBA in human resources. That's cool, Blake said. There was an awkward moment of silence, as if Blake or Serena didn't know what to say next. But of course, leave it to Kira to fill the void. Graduated with a doctorate, huh, Blake? That makes you a little too old to be hanging on college campuses, doesn't it? Kira! Serena exclaimed. I should kick her ass under this table, Serena thought. Blake's deep chuckle made her stop in mid-thought. The sound coming from him was rich and silky. It felt like his chuckle teased and danced over her skin, drawing her to him. It's cool. I did say that you could ask questions so we wouldn't be strangers, didn't I? Amusement continued to dance in his dark irises as he glanced at Kira. To answer your question, my homie is a shift manager here, so on late, broke nights, he would always hook me up with food and drinks. It just became my spot, even after being able to afford my own shit. And as far as being too old to hang out on college campuses, I've lived on this campus before it was even a campus. I lived in Southwest Philly my entire life, and I can tell you, it didn't always look this nice around here. So with that, shorty, this was my campus first. Does that answer appease you, Miss Kira? Blake said Kira's name, laced with a little sarcasm. Well, damn, with his authoritative ass. It surely appeases and turns me on, Serena thought. Kira didn't look affected at all, unlike Serena. She simply took a sip of her drink and asked, "How old are you anyways?" "Kira!" Serena yelped again. This time she did manage to kick Kira under the table. "Stop being so rude." "You call it rude, I call it getting inquisitive. Obtaining information I'm sure you want," Kira stated with a hiked eyebrow. Serena glared at her. She would have growled if it wouldn't have looked so crazy in front of Blake. "I just turned 31 a week ago on September 6th, Blake said. "So, Serena, if you're in your last year of law school, you're about 24 or 25? "I'm 24. I'll be 25 at the end of March." Kira felt like they were doing okay with filling the awkward silence, so she decided it was time for her to go to the ladies' room. "I'll be back, Serena. I'm going to go to the ladies' room," Kira said, getting up and hurrying off before Serena could reply or follow. That left Blake and Serena at the table alone. The two stared at one another for a few moments before speaking again. "So, where are you from, Serena?" Blake asked. "Right here," Serena replied, smiling. She couldn't help but wonder why their paths had never crossed before, especially if he frequented this place. "I'm from West Philly, a little block off of 57th and Chestnut." "Interesting," Blake said. "I wonder why our paths never crossed until now," he said, stealing the thoughts right from her mind. "I guess timing is everything," he said, flashing her his dimples. All Serena could think about was sticking her tongue in them. That's a little weird, Serena," she thought. "What made you want to stay in Philly for school?" Serena asked, trying to take her mind off his dimples. "Family. I don't plan on being here forever, though. I want to see the world, experience life outside of the box. My company has many offices around the world. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll relocate to one of them. What about you? What made you stay in the city of brotherly love?" Blake asked. "I love my city. Always have and always will. It's not perfect, but Philly has everything a person needs. Fun, excitement, culture, Ivy League schools, the best cheesesteaks ever, and let's not forget about water ice." Serena giggled. The sound of Serena's giggle did things to Blake, and not just to his libido. He felt his heart swell at the sound. He'd never thought of his heart swelling at the sound of a woman's giggle. Other body parts, yes. "Yo, you on some real extra shit right now," Blake told himself before getting back to their conversation. "Water ice?" Blake asked with a raised eyebrow. "Yes, I love water ice," Serena exclaimed. "Solid. Note taken," Blake said, literally making a mental note, since there was at least another few weeks of warm weather left. He was already thinking of spending more time with her in the near future. "Do you never plan on leaving Philly? What's your plans after law school?" Serena mulled over his questions for a moment. She'd never thought about leaving Philly before and figured she'd be completely honest about it, even if it did come across as a little closed-minded. "When I think of growing old, I've always thought of doing so here in this city. So I don't know if I could ever leave. As far as plans after law school, I've always wanted my own practice. Serena S. Howard and Associates. That's my dream." "What does the S stand for?" Blake asked. "Superwoman," she giggled. "Okay, I'll table that topic for now. I'll find a way to get it out of you later," Blake thought. It was new for him, but Blake wanted to learn as much as he could about Serena. The food arrived, and Blake watched as Serena dug in. He'd always liked his women to have a good appetite. For food and dick, Blake thought. He just stared at Serena for a moment and watched as her mouth moved in succession to devour a nacho and then a wing. Serena was enjoying those first few bites so much that she didn't seem to notice Blake staring. Then a dribble of blue cheese dressing slid down the corner of her mouth, and Blake so badly wanted to lick it up He settled for taking his thumb and wiping it away. That got Serena's attention. Thanks, she stammered. I don't normally make such a mess. Blake could tell his move made her nervous, but he was fine with that. Any time, he replied, and he meant it. Blake started to dig in, and they continued to eat with small conversation between bites. Blake learned that both of Serena's parents were retired attorneys living in Center City. They had her late in their lives after years of trying to conceive. She surprised her parents when her mother found out she was pregnant at 42 years old. They had stopped fertility treatments years earlier when the risks of becoming pregnant increased. Serena told Blake about her lonely childhood growing up and how later in her teens, her parents were always mistaken for her grandparents. Her parents had treated her good, though, and given her the world. And even though it was their dream for her to become a lawyer, she'd admitted to loving the idea and being taken with thoughts of arguing for a living. Thus, being a trial lawyer in whatever area of law she chose was a must. Blake laughed. He couldn't imagine the shy woman he'd met less than an hour ago wanting to argue for a living. He had a lot to learn about her, he thought. She continued to explain that while her parents were both lawyers, they spent most of their money on fertility treatments, so they continued to live in a small row house, passed down from her grandparents in West Philly. After being born, her parents thought of leaving the city for the suburbs, but her mother loved the small, close-knit connection provided on the city block where she spent most of her life. Opting to stay in their home, they remodeled the house to give it a more modern feel. After stopping fertility treatments, Serena's parents had a lot more free money that they saved for the remodel and subsequently private schools for Serena. So Serena grew up in the hood, but went to the best private schools. She was fine with that. Serena described enjoying being able to mix in with her friends on the block and her classmates back in school. Serena had grown up learning to be a chameleon. Blake was intrigued by all that he learned. He was surprised Serena was so talkative. Either the margarita or the food had her talking, but he wouldn't complain. He was enjoying her company. "I've just talked your ear off. I'm sorry." Serena realized she had been going on and on between bites for a while, and her cheeks started to burn a little with embarrassment. The pause in their conversation had Serena realizing that Kira never returned from the bathroom. She was both thankful and annoyed with her best friend. "That's my BFF for you," Serena thought. Serena let that fact go and focused back on her conversation with Blake. "What about you? How did Blake become Blake?" Serena watched him pause for a moment and then continued to chew on his nachos, as if he wouldn't answer her question. Immediately, she thought, here comes the bullshit. Blake turned to her, and she noticed his eyes were guarded. The carefree smile and energy he exuded before was now stiff and tense. His reaction was brief, but she'd noticed before he recovered from whatever he was thinking about or determining what and what not to tell Serena. Blake finally responded. "Typical hood life, typical hood upbringing. In high school, I just decided to be different from everyone around me, which wasn't too hard to do. I was smart and always did well in school, no matter how distracted I got by the streets. Around 16, looking at my surroundings, all my homies were either getting into unnecessary trouble with the law or getting their shorties pregnant, and I knew I didn't want either for my life. I didn't abandon my friends. I just refocused my attention, and the real ones who fucked with me, regardless of whether I was on the block or hitting the books, stayed by my side. Some hated on me and called me a sellout, but that ain't make me no never mind. Growing up the way I grew up, the shit-talking people did was meaningless, and whoever had anything to say about my change in lifestyle knew not to test me beyond words. So they lived their lives and I lived mine. That's what makes me, me." Blake ended his quick overview of his life. The way Blake...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?